And so the argument is by those who advocate the war on terror and what have you, suggest that Islam is the source of sectarian politics. Listen to this. And genealogy is the source of civic politics. Look at the contradictions. And so if you begin to infuse Islam in politics, you are going to have problems, serious problems of instability and whatnot. The converse of that argument, which demonizes Islam as a source of civic inspiration, is that Islam can be and has been the source of bringing community together as a civic unit, not as a sectarian unit. And the Union of Islamic Courts, despite the mistakes they have made, some of them very serious in my opinion, have attempted to precisely do what George Bush was claiming, to use their faith as a basis of bringing people back together, rather than dividing them. Let me then briefly describe the two alliances that have emerged out of these three debates. First alliance argues that political genealogy is the only basis of reconstruction in that country. And the representative from the TFG precisely said that a few minutes ago here. And in order to pursue that political project of reconstruction via political genealogy, inspired by Meles Zenawi's project in Ethiopia itself, says that the instrument for translating that idea into practice, that instrument are the instruments of the war on terror, supporting the warlords, ensuring and endorsing the Ethiopian invasion of Somalia, and the bombing of nomads in the southwest of Somalia. So using the instruments of the war on terror to push the political genealogy in reconstructing Somali politics. And the enemy for this camp is Islam. Who are these actors who come together on this alliance? Very strange. Warlords, sectarian politicians, Western governments and Western organizations, including the United Nations and the African Union, all are implicated in that project. Very recently, the UN Special Representative to Somalia, Ambassador Fall, was speaking to a Canadian program which I listened to at night in Minnesota, called As It Happens. And Ambassador Fall told the interviewer that they cannot ask Ethiopia to withdraw because Ethiopia is preventing a civil war. I don't know where Mr. Fall lives and gets his ideas. The displacement of 450,000 people, the destruction of 1/3 of the capital city of that country by the bombardment of Ethiopian planes and their artillery, and the killing of at least 2,000 people in Mogadishu, plus the death of at least another 5,000 people from the desperation in the bush. If that's not civil war, I don't know what is. So that's the camp that we're talking about. The second camp that has emerged out of this project, or alliance, are those who advocate civic politics as the basis of social and political reconstruction of the country. I have run out of time. And so their argument is that civic politics, or bringing communities together rather than dividing them on the basis of genealogy, is the way to reconstruct. And Islam can be and has been an instrument for realizing that, and that the terror or the war on terror and the warlords are the enemy. That's one camp. Who are these? Legitimate business community. And by the way, some of the biggest business people in Mogadishu have been sequestered to come to Addis Ababa on a regular basis. The telecom people and some of the major businesses go to Addis Ababa forcefully, week after week, and are paying ransom to the Ethiopian government and the TFG to the tune of $50,000 monthly to the TFG without a receipt. What are the competing agendas? I'm sorry. And so legitimate business people, civics, Islamic court movement are the camp here, if you like. And there are no international package. There's no United Nations for them. There's no African Union for them, and so on and so forth. They are the lonely soldiers. But certainly they have the sympathies of the Somali people, I can assure you of that. What are the competing agendas then that's emerging out of this mess? What's the American agenda? The terrible memory of 1993 haunts the United States, and certainly the administration, if you like. The bombing of the US embassies in 1998 in Dar es Salaam and Nairobi, and their assumption that to make sure that nothing like that ever happens again, we have to hem in Somalia. It doesn't matter who controls Somalia, it doesn't matter what it means to the Somali people. That's why Assistant Secretary of State Jendai Fraser will go to Baidawa at the height of the killing in Mogadishu and said no word about the destruction of that city and the displacement of its people. What's the Ethiopian agenda? There's a document in a book written by an Ethiopian Oromo about chat, this herb that East Africans chew. And in there, he situates a document by the government of Ethiopia in the early part of the 1960s, to be precise, 1961, where the government of Ethiopia is on record to say, and you have to forgive me if I sort of extract 2 more minutes from you, says that we must ensure as the government of Ethiopia that Chad is spread into all populations in Somalia so that they can become literally addicts and will never be able to organize a force that can challenge the dominance of Ethiopia in the region. This is by an Ethiopian, not by me. I can give you the citation later on. Secondly, Emperor Haile Selassie. There was a gentleman today who was talking about the 5-star, the 5-pointed star in 1960 and the Constitution. Haile Selassie goes to Qabri Dahara in 1954. And the British began to complain about this when they were governing the north part of the country, what's called Somaliland presently. And was trying to tell the British and the Italians that they should not allow the Somalis in the north and the south to legitimately decide on their own terms to unify and become a country alone. And he even went to the extent, the Ethiopian government went to the extent of trying to convince the Soviet Union to use its veto power in the United Nations to ensure that a united Somalia does not become a member of the United Nations. That's where the beginning is.
Thank you, Professor Samatar.
Final comment. Just give me 1 minute, okay? What's the Somali agenda? So the Ethiopian agenda is one. Either a united Somalia that is governed by a government that's beholden to it, as like Abdullahi Yusuf and company, or a Somalia that's divided into clan lines and will be fragmented into bank states. What's the Somali sort of agenda? Weak as it is. As I said, the civics, the Islamic courts, and others are talking about a unified Somalia where there is no 4.5, where there are no clans, but there is common citizenship. Unfortunately, they are disorganized, they are very weak, they don't have a lot of resources. That's what we see in Somalia, and that's the product of the struggles over the last 20 years, if you like, and the way in which international terrorism by the United States government, my own government, and Ethiopia has produced a Somalia that can become a crisis, not only for Somalia itself, but for the entire region. Thank you very much.